So our next speaker is Carmen Carrillo. Would you like to tell them about the Latin American Student Organization and the TWLF?
Sure, I'd love to. Buenos dias, good morning. Aloha. I came to San Francisco State as a graduate student. I had come from Berkeley, where I did an undergraduate degree in psychology. And I found out that with an undergraduate degree in psychology, all I could do was sell shoes. So many people, I had the benefit of a lot of support in the community, in the Latino community, in the Mission District, and people were urging me to, continue my education, go do something else. So I came to State, and I was very glad to see that at State there were a lot of people who were similar to me, who had aspirations, who had the thought of social justice as paramount in whatever they were doing, whatever field they were in. Quick question, how many of you are in psychology? Psych majors. Okay, very few. But probably sociology. How about sociology? Anthropology? Okay. Follow-up question. When you read your textbooks, do you see yourself in the textbooks? Do you find your families in the textbooks? Well, that's a big change for those of you who say yes, because when I was going to school, we weren't in the textbooks. We weren't in the textbooks, we weren't, available as, we didn't have role models, we didn't have people who we could aspire to ask questions that were relevant to our lives. And so at State, for me, it was very exciting that there were Latinos, because at Berkeley, we were like a handful at that time. And so we were very closely allied with the Black students on campus at Berkeley. We participated in the free speech movement. We participated in the anti-war movement, but we were never prominent because we were like minorities within minorities. But when I came to State, I was very glad to see that there was a lot of spirit. People wanted to do things and people wanted to change. Now, it wasn't just us. In the prior panel, the question was asked, who are we, or who defines who we are? And that's a critical question, because the state apparatus, wants to define who we are, by developing a plan for education for the state and by putting us in various segments where we should fit in order to serve the needs of the state and of the corporate world. But who are we really? We are, in the Latino community at that time, on the campus, we were a small group. We were 2.8% of the student body. And we came from all sorts of places. There were people who came from New Mexico, who said they were Spanish, and there were people who came from Central America and from South America, who spoke great Spanish, and there were the baby boomers like us who, some of us spoke Spanish and some didn't, because the forces of assimilation said you have to drop your old life and, get into the new groove and drop your culture and assimilate into the next one. So we were a really diverse group. And how could we come together? Well, we started to come together with two small organizations, the Mexican American Student Confederation and LASO, which was a Latin American student organization. And the organizations were small and sometimes had overlapping memberships, like I would, swing from one to the other. And sometimes had different goals. The MASC was more oriented towards, towards looking at, student recruitment, student retention, and looking at participating in outside movements like the United Farm Workers and other movements in the community. And LASO had more of an internationalist approach, understanding that there were other things going on in our countries of origin. It wasn't easy because, country of origin situation is always complicated. The Colombians, lost Panama because the imperialists wanted to build a canal. The Salvadorians had a soccer war with Honduras because of shifting borders. Mexico took Chiapas and Tabasco from Guatemala because the Tabascans were not happy. And all of this, gets translated through generations. And it ended up with us who didn't have necessarily a unifying thread, except when we began to work in organizations. And those organizations then also started to work with other ethnic and racial groups to form the Third World Liberation Front. It was not easy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't an easy coming together, but in fact, I mentioned we were 2.8% of the student population. We were 6% of the students arrested in the strike. Once we decided to participate, we participated at all levels. Roger, the spokesperson, was prominent in the strike, and everybody else participated in different capacities. But we did it with conviction. We did it putting our bodies on the line. We were arrested. I had never been in jail before. I thought I wouldn't be able to practice as a psychologist, but I did it because I believed in it. And I thought one has to stand for one's principles. One has to be willing to sacrifice, if need be, in order to move our whole community, not just our ethnic racial community, but the whole community, to move forward and to make for social change. Thank you very much.